Welcome to the NWI.com Political Roundtable for Thursday, April 17th. I'm Robert Blaskowitz, Assistant Managing Editor of The Times. Joined with me today, Krista Zavanovic, Assistant Managing Editor of The Times, and our special guest today, Christina Hale, who is a state representative from Indianapolis, but originally from Michigan City,
right.
Democrat. So thank you, Christina, for joining us today. And you wanted to discuss one issue in particular. What was that?
Oh, thank you. It's the one I'm truly most concerned about today. It's a very sad fact, actually. It's extremely troubling. In Indiana, more than 1 in 6 high school-age girls have been raped or sexually assaulted. The national average is about 10.5%. In Indiana, it's 17.3%. We're second only to Wyoming. We're out of sync with our peer states, and I believe that government's first job is providing for public safety, and our girls in Indiana today just aren't safe.
So, what would you like to see done, first of all? I mean, that's a shocking number, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers probably aren't aware of that number. What do you think can be done, first of all?
Oh, thank you. A lot of people don't believe that number, but I just want to be clear, that comes from the Centers for Disease Control. You know, the government institution we rely upon for critical health data, from the hantavirus to ensuring that cruise ships are clean and safe for passengers. It's the troubling part here in Indiana is that that's a number in aggregate, and this crime is so complex and so large. It encompasses everything from date rape to child seduction to incest to random acts of violence. There are so many different crimes that are included in that rape and sexual assault issue. And another issue that doesn't get talked about as often as it should is that boys and young men are also a victim of these kinds of victims of these kinds of crimes, and even they just don't report. So it's difficult to get our heads around what it means for them. But we know that in Indiana we have more than 11,000 registered sex offenders in our neighborhoods throughout the state. We can look at data from the criminal justice system, and we know that there are more and more victims out there. But I believe in evidence-based policy and using our state tax dollars as effectively as we possibly can, and that's really only possible when we have good information. So what I think has to be done first is a comprehensive study. And to learn more about what our problems are. They might not be the same in Kokomo or Evansville as they are in Lake County or in Marion County. We might discover a lot of different things, and it should be that information that drives our state response.
So kind of trying to drill down in those numbers and trying to really get at what the actual problem is and the cause, possibly, so that we can attack it.
Exactly. I don't think it makes any sense to invest our state tax dollars in a no means no campaign in all high schools if we know that the problem isn't date rape, the problem is incest. But you know, we all read the newspaper, read the Times, and I can tell you more often than not, we see these kinds of crimes being reported, and we know that most of them go unreported. It's just a terrible, troubling problem.
What kind of feedback have you gotten from your fellow legislators in this effort?
Very, very positive. I am a Democrat, but I actually serve in a Republican district, and I'm a freshman. So I might be a little bit Pollyanna-ish, but I knew to get something done, I was going to have to collaborate with some really strong, accomplished legislators on the other side of the aisle as well.
Well, certainly, being tough on crime is something I think both politicians of both parties want to make sure they are on the side of. So that's probably, a good tack to take with you.
Oh, it was. Getting the bill passed was difficult, but it was a great experience. In fact, we ended up amending it into one of my Republican colleagues from the Senate, his bill, Senate Bill 227. The author was Jim Merritt, and working with him, if you might recall, last year a bill passed that's now referred to as the Lifeline Law, and it was to address the kids go to drinking parties, and sometimes
no penalty for reporting, or
well, exactly. If something bad happens to a friend, they've fallen and hit their head, or they pass out, this will indemnify the young people there from the alcohol offenses.
Right. Or someone who's overdosing, getting them to the hospital.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
But it indemnifies them from the alcohol offenses. And so this year we amended it to allow people to be able to administer that a particular drug, that will stop a heroin overdose.
Right. And but we wrote about that drug. We actually had an A1 story on that drug and
I read that.
How it can save lives.
I read that and how important it is.
Yeah.
Thank you for paying attention to that issue. Secondly, we also amended the bill so that if there's a sexual assault at one of those parties, it also indemnifies the kids there from the alcohol offenses, because we do want to take down barriers to reporting, and sometimes victims don't want to get their friends in trouble, so they just decide to silently retreat. And so we're trying to help in that way. And then we also put the study in and we designed the study. I worked with a professor, Dr. John Parrish-Sproul from IUPUI. He's one of the co-founders of the IUPUI School for Global Public Health Communications, to really ensure that we were using good social science, that Indiana could take the lead and do this in a way that will give us the very best information so that we can find the solutions we need.
Who will be doing this study, and what's the next step, at least briefly?
That's a great question. And one of my challenges actually to getting the bill passed was its fiscal impact. And it actually it's probably going to cost less than $100,000 to accomplish the study, which really isn't much. And most of our state agencies revert much more than that in their already appropriated budgets. And this, of course, was not a budget year this year, so there was some friction about that. But I believe in collaboration, and I reached out to the Criminal Justice Institute. They were very interested, as was the Attorney General's office, in supporting this and seeing it move forward. So we're in the process now of applying for a grant from the Criminal Justice Institute. They'll meet later this month in April, and everything looks like it will be green-lighted, and we'll be able to start the study right away so that we can have the information later on in the year. We'll take the results back to the Commission on the Status of Children and also to the Legislative Council so that we can come up with proposed policies and a really comprehensive response.
Good luck.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, well, talking about your first session, your first experience in the legislative session, and how that went, and what you're looking forward to in the future as a legislator. What kind of issues are you interested in tackling? What kind of issues do you think the state should really be looking at?
Oh, thank you for asking that. Well, my first experience has been a very positive one, and it was a little bit intimidating knowing I was entering the State House as a freshman in the overwhelming minority. A Republican does not have to be in the room, or sorry, wishful thinking. A Democrat doesn't have to be in the room to pass any bill. So my experience has just been one of collaboration and collegiality, and this would not have been passed were it not for my Republican colleagues, and one being Senator Merritt, another being Representative Judd McMillan, who chairs the Criminal Code Revision Committee. There were many people along the way that saw the wisdom in doing this the right way. But you asked, what do I want to work on in the future? I'd like to continue to work on these issues, but I'm also ranking minority member on Commerce, Small Business, and Economic Development. And my primary issue really has to do with ensuring that our young people and our working people are connected with the job opportunities that they need to thrive. And we know in Indiana that per capita income's been falling since 1962. Household income continues to fall. We just saw recently, too, our taxes keep going up, so our paychecks are absolutely getting smaller. That said, I believe, and I've heard it said, that higher education has never been more important, more expensive, but less valuable. And we need to make sure that when people are making that sacrifice to get that 2-year degree, that 4-year degree, to make themselves employable, that it's relevant, and employers where they live need their skill set. I'm a member of the Indiana Career Council, and I've been working hard on the Community College Best Practices Task Force to make sure that we're doing things that help lift people up. For example, at a community college, at Ivy Tech, we want to encourage that we have block scheduling. So people that are working a second job, that are parenting, they can tell their babysitter, their employer, I'm going to be in school Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from these times. That makes sense. So they're not running all over town. That we can make their lives and their scholarship and their working life easier. But partnerships between industry, one great success story you've probably heard of has to do with the Toyota plant in southern Indiana. Their partnership with Vincennes University and Project Lead the Way, so that we can identify students when they're in high school so that they have the right trajectory, they're making the right choices in terms of classwork and outside curricular. They move on to Vincennes University, get that 2-year degree with great deal of influence from Toyota into what that degree is and what the skills they'll be learning. Going then to work at the Toyota plant, and with a 2-year degree, a young person making $65,000 a year in Evansville, oftentimes up to $90,000 and more with overtime. It transforms that community, it transforms that person's life. And I think if we just work a little bit smarter and more collaboratively, that's just a model that we can replicate throughout our state.
You're in a unique position as being someone who was from the region, but now is representing Marion County. And I think that we always talk a lot about, it's talked about a lot here, how there seems to be this kind of Marion County-centered focus down in the State House, and we're just kind of ignored or an afterthought or second on the list. Can you give us your view of that? Are we off on that? Are we onto something?
I think you're absolutely onto something. I absolutely agree with you. But I would say that it's just my opinion and my experience, but I do feel that all too often my colleagues, I'm one of them, the General Assembly, we like to think that we know more than we do, and we tend to micromanage. Everyone says that we believe in small government and local control, and we don't always walk our talk. And I try to be very mindful of that myself. In my district downstate, for example, you might have heard about this proposed mass transit bill.
Right,
I know that you're very concerned about transit up here and South Shore expansion, and similar case down there. And
you almost couldn't get a referendum. Much less the transit itself.
It took years. Yeah. And then the bill would not have passed if we didn't have a provision that forbade light rail. Now, we can have an expanded bus system, but the General Assembly said no to Marion County, no to the region, the central Indiana region. You can't have light rail. Well, my response to that is, you know what? We're not a state house full of civil engineers. We are not. We don't all have expertise in that. We have opinions like light rail, bad idea, too expensive, and it might be, but there's a disconnect between, driving policy and then trying to control how that policy is executed at a local level, and I see that absolutely, and I think. I'll do whatever I can to bring a little bit more respect for my home region up here, which has been an economic engine for us for more than 100 years.
It's good to know we have a friend, not only in the State House, but down in Indianapolis, too.
And call my dad if you ever need to really turn screws on me.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us, Christina. And thank you for watching, and we'll be back next week with another Political Roundtable.